How's it going, everybody? Here we are once again with Deck Sage. This is the kind of recurring content on the channel where I take your deck list that you send to me using the form in the description down below, and I try to review them, try to help you, give you ideas, and try to make these decks as good as they possibly can be. So, of note, I'm not perfect. I don't know everything about every deck. I don't know. I'm going to make mistakes on some of these. I'm not a perfect knowledge for every archetype base. Really, this is intended to be a tool for any players, whether you're brand new to the game and sending me the Final Fantasy 13 starter deck and saying I can't spend more than $2 on this, or if you are a qualified for day 2 at Nationals already, right? Service is open to anybody. I just like looking at deck lists and helping people to do better. So I've got 5 decks pulled up. We'll see how many we get through here. So we have, first up, we have Rest with a Twins MIra list that I have pulled up right here. They have been to locals, want to get better. Firion looks good, but they're tight on deck slots, is what their notes say, and it's for locals. They want to take it somewhat seriously. So as always, we're using FF decks for this. So let's take a look at this list. I'm going to go ahead and open this in the deck editor. Excuse me. And let's take a look at what we got here. Okay, so we have Palom, Porum, 2 MIra, 1 Arceola, 1 Fiend, 1 Realm, 1 Demon. We have 18 monsters and 15 backups. Alright, let's see what all we can do here. Yeah, we do look a little tight on slots. So the hard thing is, I really don't like just the 1 realm. I actually would like to get that to 3 if at all possible. Arceola is also really good, but hard to fit in. So I really think the Firions are really good here. We're going to be weak to Arcanist. I don't think there's any way around that. We just got too many 2-drops in this list. But I think that that's just going to have to be something we accept at that point. When we have that, I always like Evrea Tomos in any list with Realm. So let's try to do that. And then let's go through here. 3 Blue Worm is great. I'm going to go to 2 Tomberry. I'm going to cut the pies out entirely. Hopefully that doesn't hurt our fire count too badly. We cut the Kooks. Go down to 1 Tonbetty. See if I can bump to 3 Arceola. Okay, that seems decent so far. What's next here? Let's go down a copy of Leonora. Do we have enough fire cards? I like running Cleone with MIra because it sacrifices. If MIra sacrifices into the Cleone, you draw. And we're only going to run the Amaterasu's. I think that that's enough where I feel confident in saying that Cleone is good enough for this in that situation. Which is good. We're a little low on fire, which is annoying. Arceola is going to draw us a card every turn, but she's not necessarily... I think 13 backups. We're going to be drawing and cycling into our deck very quickly. So I'm mostly okay with this. We have 3 fire backups. We're going to see those very consistently as well, which is good for our goblins. I'm going to go down a copy of Blue Goo. And let's go down our Fiend. Really not that much I would change for this. I think that going to about this looks a little better. The Evrea Tomos is going to accelerate us a lot faster. And our Realms are going to help us to spam our monsters to the field. We're a little low on them, which might be a problem for MIra. Maybe we won't have a discard fodder for her. But Goblin does put a monster on field and a monster in hand for MIra to sacrifice and then have her little Solemn Judgment on legs effect. And the Goblin can help round up our Porum kills, make our Porums kill, make our Paladins kill. I actually really like that in this list. Maybe even down one copy of Octomammoth for like one fire card. Like a haste goblin. Just to kind of give the goblins an endpoint to go towards as well. And then haste is never bad. Hasting a demon when he comes in is really good as well. Could cut this for one copy of that for... I like a Quattro Queen here, potentially. Go Quattro Queen, pull back a monster, and also have a monster in hand. This kind of gets our monster count to 17 or higher for our Miras. That seems pretty decent. Yeah, this would do decently. Like, the only real weakness that is going to be Arcanist. But you just simply won't hit anything playing Arcanist. Our Octomammoths are going to be live pretty consistently. Yeah, this looks really good. Again, it's one of my favorite things about twins, by the way. The twin engine, as far as I'm concerned, is just Palom, Porum, and some number of Leonora. After that, you can run just about anything in this deck with these, and they'll probably they'll pull their weight in it. 17 fire cards, 33. So it'll be a little heavier on water, but that's actually fine. I actually like being higher on water for Arciela. It means that she can draw a lot more consistently, which is more important than the actual ping effect is. Yeah, thanks for sending in the list, Rust. Alright, so up next we have Uka. Uka sent in Mono Earth Wall. Yeah, let's take a look through here. We have the 2 Leos, the 1 Ceramobius, 1 Sophie, so we're pretty heavy on all that. We're on 2 Riku, so 2 Riku, 2 Leo as our color fixers. Okay. You have 2 Monts, 3 Une, 3 Wall. Okay. Seems pretty decent. I get where we're at. Kimari, Falna, okay. Alright, let's take a look. Let's see what we can do here. So I know a lot of lists that are doing this are on just 2 Leo. I sort of get that, but I don't love it. I kind of like having 3 Leo. One way we can kind of artificially increase our Leo count is with Zombie. Zombie is recursion for 1-drop forwards. Leo just so happens to be a 1-drop forward, which is fantastic for us. This is a very good candidate for the Earth backup of the current cycle that I'm going to go ahead and just throw 3 Leatherworkers in. I don't love Minor, just given that a Reveal 5 effect that hits only backups is decently likely to whiff. Claris for Kolka or Leo. It's not terrible. Go to Leatherworkers. I'm going to go to 1 of Falna. Kamari's cute. I like that. It's going to put us on a higher back. I'm going to cut the miners. I know that means we don't have a lot of backups to get other backups, but I'm not super worried about that if we're on 16. We're going to draw into them as we need them. So that's going to leave more room for engine cards. So we're here in our summons. I don't love Leviathan here, just because I think it's going to be a little too hard for us to cast, and our modes, we're only going to be able to get back a couple of forwards with it. I would rather just replace that with an extra copy of Kusith and more removal spells. I'm going to bump to 3 Heka. We're going to want to play a little slow, and a lot of our forwards will actually dodge the Heka on our side. Fenrir, I really like here. Getting these back is cool. This dragon's great. I love that. Put that to... I'm going to go down on the Fenrir's, up the Mist Dragon count to 3. Carbuncle, fantastic. We're going to put that at 3 even. And I'm going to cut the Kooks. So it puts us at 52. Take a look over here and see what all we have. Okay, a couple cards I don't recognize in here. I like the Galuf. It's going to give us a great matchup into 13. I don't love the Zayzat. I get the idea is that like if we have Zayzat plus Leo, we can like use our backups to do stuff, but there's kind of a better version of this exact card. If this is a pet card, feel free to leave it in, but I am going to temporarily remove Zayzat from this list. Garnet's fine. Riku, I'm okay with. 2 Leo is a-okay with me. We got our zombies to get him back as well. Do we have any other 1-drop Earths? We could run Tifa in here, actually, to pair with the Leo. I don't mind that. I'm trying to think what other like really solid 1-drop forwards there are that we could pair with our zombie. I'll come back to that in a little bit. Emperor is another one that, like, because you have to warp them and we're trying to use all of our backups, I'm not a huge fan of this in here. Let's bump our Mont Leonis to 3. If we're going to have our backups like this curving out, we should make our Monts as good as possible. And being able to pull the Unes and the Warriors of Light is fantastic. Shadow Lord for defensive options. Riku requires us to cast. I'm going to put Riku at 1. Puts the 50 cards exactly. Okay, the zombie has to get exactly a forward. Let's put the Garnet to 1 as well. I get the idea it's like the Sophie, but like I don't really think the Sophie is going to be super reliable for us, even with the extra Fenrirs. We could put the Leo up by 1 as well if we wanted to, but I think we have enough ways to get to our Leo. I'm not super concerned with that. See if there's any 1-drop Earth forwards that I really like. 1-drop. Actually, think Undead Princess is kind of slept on. What's Mont's power? Mont's is 7. See if there's any like must resolve auto abilities on forwards that are less than 800. Not particularly. Kate Sith's not a bad card either, to be honest. Suzuhisa's, I think, actually very slept on. I'm going to put the Suzuhisa in here so we have a bit of extra draw power, actually. Suzuhisa plus Zombie seems like we have a bit of a draw engine going. Zombie is a multi-playable forward. It's going to get our Monts online. We go like Shadow Lord and just kind of end the game there. Kind of a oldie but a goodie card that I think actually might be slept on a little bit as just like a card that people don't realize is better than it could be. You could feel free to cut this for a 3rd Leo. I think that would be totally defensible. Any other decent Earth monsters pair very well with Mont Leonis because he checks for characters. You can get this guy down very, very cheap. But even if we have like a zombie and then like a 5 backups, you know, Mont's going to cost 5. Revive an Une seems pretty good. I'm not going to lie. If we get any more than that, that's just gravy. Just real quick, let's like see if what the cheap Earth monsters are. I've seen these running like Behemoth before, or like even like an Antlion. Or the Gigas, like these 3 are all really good here as ways to just kind of continue like fill our monsters up so that our Mont Leonises have as much value as possible when they come in. But yeah, this looks really good. I like this. So these are like the things to consider are like these trio right here. If we wanted to cut like the Sarah and the Sophie package, we could run the 3 Behemoths instead. But I do really like Sarah Mobius. Fenrir is one of my favorite combos in the game, so I don't hate that either. Yeah, give this a shot. Let me know what you think. And thanks again, Uka. Alright, up next we have Ogie Bear. Ogie Bear sent in Kirin and Friends. So they've been to locals, they want to get better. Really into the game, unsure deck building, but they want to center the deck around Kirin, and it's for locals and they want to take it somewhat seriously. So let us take a look at the Kirin deck that we were given. That is a lot of 1-ofs. So the first thing I will say, I am not a fan of running this many 1-ofs in a deck. One of the big things that separates good decks from bad decks is how consistently they can fire their normal game plan. We have a lot of random one-offs, especially a lot of random like one-off dark cards. That scares me a lot. Let's go ahead. Let's go open this in deck editor. Let me count up our 4 forward count, and I will explain the reason for that shortly. So we have 1 Emperor, or 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11, 14, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So we have at least got that down pretty correctly. Let me pull this up. So I've pulled this up on screen a lot before, but this is it's intended for Yu-Gi-Oh, but it's the same thing. It's just a geometric probability thing. But if we're looking at our deck, Kirin is obviously on field. So I'm going to say 49 cards are left in the deck other than the Kirin. We're going to reveal 5 cards. So there's 23. And we have to reveal 1. And you can see, like, it's just 96% hit chance. That's very good. So what is the minimum we want to run to make this consistent? Like 85% is what I would say. Start plugging in numbers. 18 gives us a 91%. That's not bad. 16, about 15 gives us the 85%. So good to know. We don't quite have to go as high as you did on 4s, but that is a option that we can go with. Let's try to clean this up a little bit. There's some pretty fun cards in here for sure. So first thing that I see, we're kind of using a Soiree engine, which is great. Soiree Kirin has been a deck for a long time. No issues with that whatsoever. But I don't really like the doggy in Soiree, especially when we factor in the Kirin. That could just be a different forward for us. I'm going to cut our Emperor, our Kadaj. I'm going to say that the Xenos can be any of the dark forwards you said, but not all of them. And we have a problem here because we have Chaos and Chaos. We have a conflict in names. I'm going to go ahead and cut both of them for now because I don't think we really need either of them. We're going to simplify this a little bit. Alright, so we have our Kirins. What are our best Kirin hits? We've got the 3 of them right here. Renoa is obviously a very good one. We're going to bump the Renoa to 3 even. Renoa is also just going to be good because we're going to have the 3 Tyro 2 Shantoto, so we can always cast our Renoa as well and get the best effect we have one more time. From there, what are the best cards in here? This Dark Elf, I don't like all that much. I know that like the effect sounds decent, but it's very easy for this to be played around. So again, if these are pet cards of yours that you like playing, feel free to leave them in, but personally I'm not a huge fan. Gudon is cute, but also it's kind of just a beat stick, and the colors don't match up super well with us. Irwin at 1 is fine. Garland is fine. I'll leave the 1 Garland in. Railed Vesvia. O. I don't love the O as a sticky forward. Like, it's possible to play him that way, but I think there's just higher impact things in an 8K vanilla. I want to go to 3 Arc. I love Arc in this list. That looks great. Let's go up to Galef, up to Gilgamesh for some removal. I think we can bump that. We're missing the best target for Kirin, which is Warrior of Light. We're going to put 3 copies of Warrior of Light in. Our backups are going to be able to cast them as well, which is fantastic. 3 Amber, 3 Shinju, 2 Lexa, 3 Elbus is a totally fine ratio. It's completely defensible. Our backups will always be able to cast our Warrior of Light as well if we fully curve out. I'm going to cut the Lava Spider. So Lava Spider is very cute in very aggressive decks, and this can be that, but those aggressive decks are usually playing a much higher fire count than this. If you don't recognize it, why it's strange, Lava Spider gives your attacking forwards 3,000 power. which means that they should win combat. But if the combat ends, they lose the 3,000 power and they'll die immediately. So basically it means that your forwards kind of trade up. We don't need to trade up. We have a lot of really, really strong stuff over here, right? So I'm going to cut the Lava Spider. I'm going to bump our Mist Dragons to 2. The Tidus is kind of off theme a little bit, so I'm going to cut that as well. And the Fell Thanos, again, is another card that's kind of off theme. That puts us at 51. Aerith is totally fine here. I'm going to cut the Garland as well, just to kind of get us past that. And see how much cleaner this is? We still have a lot of forwards. We're still very much trying to resolve the Kirin as much as humanly possible. But now our hits, we're going to kind of have a much better picture of what we're doing when that Kirin resolves. As opposed to having a lot of these like weird one-off effects, we know, all right, if I hit anything, it's probably going to be better for me than it is for my opponent, right? And that's totally all we need. The only thing I will say about, and this is just true of Kirin lists, because we need to have, again, I said it was 15 to 18-ish 4-drop forwards. We're on 3, 4, 7, 10, 13. Let me think if there's, actually, we're going to go for the best answer to Arcanist we can run, which is we're going to run 3 Zidane as well. We're going to make room for this. I think that's one that's defensible to go down 1. Galef to 1 is fine. And I would consider cutting even the Xenos and just not worrying about it. But I don't hate the idea of the Xenos being a decent thing to put back in the break zone later. Let's go down 1 copy of... I'm going to say 1 copy of Warrior of Light. And there we go. I think that is a decently changed version of the list. So let's try this one more time. 3, 4, 7, 10, 13, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21. 95% hit rate on our Kirins. We're not worried about that at all. We have a very consistent backup lineup. We have everything we could ever want with this. I think this looks absolutely fantastic. This is going to... And the nice thing about this list as well in this situation is we can either curve out with the Soiree package, or we can just turbo the Kirin in the right matchups where we're depending on what we need to do. This looks really cool. I hope that helped a little bit. And again, just a general rule of thumb for deck building, the more 3-ofs we can put in, the better, just because we want to be repeating what we're doing as much as we can. It builds in a lot of redundancy. Even if it is bad to draw 2 of the same name cards, there are not that many situations where you wouldn't rather do that than have a more consistent game plan. Alright, this is such a cool list. So this list was sent in by Hans. This is Opus 20 Loporrit plus Sin is what they called it. It says they're pretty new to the game, and they want to push Loporrit as a recursive way to break forwards, but maybe this is too fair, and it's for locals, but they want to take it somewhat seriously. So it took me a little bit to kind of figure out what this list's goal is. Let me know when you all see it, but the goal of this list, it's kind of a pretty normal Guardian package, which I think is a really cool way of playing Wind Water, and my favorite way for a new player to play the game. But you'll notice there's 1 copy of Sin here, and the reason for that is we want to consistently flicker Sin to our hand with Shinryu, with Jekt, with Brother, and then we're going to tuck it back in the deck with Loporrit and kind of use the search effect of Sin, where when it's added to your hand, you can pay 3 to break a forward. So I have some really... I think this list is really, really cool for that. I'm going to build this list as is, and then I'm going to make a couple changes at the very end. And then I'm going to make this into what I think is actually quite a very strong deck. So, let's go ahead And let's go right into the deck editor. So again, we're going to say that for now, we're going to assume that the Sin is good enough as is. I'm going to build around that as best I possibly can. So I like our backups. We have our 3 Buddy, 3 Riku, which is fantastic, our 1 Brother. 2 Awaka, that's a little higher than I would like, just given that we've got so few names in our backups. We've got our 3 Loporrit, which is great. I would like to get this to 14-ish backups, though. So we're going to go ahead and add just a couple of extra names here. I'm going to go with a Kimari and a Len, just so we kind of have the extra water category 10 backups over here. So we built around the 3-drop Unilegend from 19. I think that's totally fine. I like splitting, but I think three there is fine. This Riku is going to conflict with our backup Riku, so we have to take her out, unfortunately. Fantastic EX burst and a really good payoff, just not going to fit in this deck. Everett, 2 Everett, 1 Atomos. I like 1/1 if we're going to do that. We don't really have a great Storm Payload, but I don't hate these cards as generic good stuff cards in most decks. 3 Lulu with 10 summons, and our summon package is very well built, actually. 3 Azura, 3 Chocobo, 3 Chocobo, and 2 Alexander. I think that's really, really good. Let's go ahead and bump our Orans up a little bit to make our Wakas more consistent. And let's look for a Tidus, actually, to put in this list. We can't run the Light Tidus because we have our Sin. But if our goal is to replay our Loporrit a bunch, this Tidus actually would be pretty nice. We could continuously bounce our Loporrit, so we could replay it and put our Sin back in the deck. So I'm going to say we're going to be on 2 of this Tidus as well. This Pain is still a reasonably good card in this situation. Izana for Chocobo. Yeah, those are good. I'm going to leave the Izana in. I think the Chocobo summons are more than nice to search. And let's go ahead and add in 1 copy of Chocolate as just a nice little backup to search and kind of round that out. I'm going to go... The Lulu's really good in this deck, actually. I think the Rosa is probably the last flex spot that I would like to cut. So this gives us our nice little consistency here. We know that we're not going to be doing the normal retainer thing with our Jex and bouncing it to hand. But we have a lot of removal. We have our Tidus to bounce both our Loporrit and opponents forward, which then allows us to use the Loporrit to do that. We can bounce our Brother to hand and then search another copy of our Sin with it. Just a very flexible card with what we're trying to do in this deck. I think it's a really neat way of doing that. So now's where the point where I got to tell you that I don't think this Sin is necessarily worth building around. You've identified the worst thing about this Sin, which is that even when you search this Sin, it doesn't do anything in your hand. You very rarely are going to want to cast this card, right? So because we don't really want to cast this card, it kind of ends up being a dead 2CP in hand a lot of the time. So you paid 3, but because you have a dead card in hand, it's almost like paying 5 to break a forward, which is just a little bit on the fair side ultimately. So I'm going to make just 1 change, and this deck's going to go from being a little bit worse to being actually quite good. We're going to run Medine. Medine is just what you were doing with Sin, but better. You can go Shinryu, search your Medine, and you can do that, and then you have your Lulus to get it back. We could run the 2 copies of Kidna, so we can get our Medines back that way. We have our Lulus to get it back. You can use Lene to draw with it even, which is really sick. You can go down a copy of the Tidus here. Was it 53? Let's cut the Pains just because our Yuna's a forward. A little less consistent to resolve her than I would like. And I'm going to cut 1 copy of this Chocobo. And I think that this actually is a list that has a lot of merit now. We have backup removal and the ability to attack that with our Tidus. We have inevitability thanks to our Bismarck, allowing us to reuse our Yuna a bunch. We have Shinryu Medine as a removal engine that's just perfect. Or if the Medine isn't good enough, we can go Shinryu for Shinryu and just wipe the field, right? Um, I think this list is really, really cool, actually. Like, definitely one that I think is worth playing and experimenting with. We have 14 backups, but we're very, very consistent thanks to how good Buddy and Loprod are going to be at digging through our deck. You could even consider going for a copy of Artemisian. Go to 15 backups and then cut like one copy of the Chocobo here. Like, think how good it'll be if you have Shinryu and your opponent has 5 forwards and you have a couple Medines in hand. You go tap 2, Shinryu search Medine, tap a backup Medine, tap a backup Medine, tap a backup Medine, and just kind of win the game, right? So I think this is very interesting. I'm very curious if this actually ends up being good. I wouldn't be surprised if it was, I'll be totally honest. We even have Waka, or we have Orin for protection for our Shinryu. Like, this list is cool. Thanks for sending in the idea. And honestly, even the version you had with the Sin, I think there's a lot of really interesting ideas and really interesting merits to that. I'd love to see that worked through. Just kind of rewind the video to before I swapped it to being a Shinryu Medine. But I think Sin does take up less deck slots and allows for some really cool options there as well. So, how am I doing on time? 31 minutes? I could probably do at least one more. So this is from this is from Dean. Dean sent in 2 lists, but wanted to edit it, so they sent in again. So they've been to a Materia Cup and want to compete seriously. The deck is for serious tourney play and practice. Let's go through kind of both of the things they sent in. So they said they're out of their comfort zone. Normally play Knights. Heck yeah. Earthwind. Heck yeah. It says Lightning Element and monsters in general are alien to me. They're not on Lightning anymore. New Opus 20 MIra has caught my attention as it gives Trap Tricks Rafflesia vibes. Absolutely agree. It's what I called it the first time when I read the card. Want to explore the concept, and if I feel confident, would like to take it for the second deck for Euros coming up in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Hopefully this comes out in time for that. Gameplay vision is monster spam that will either generate CP or card draws will provide bonuses from Sahagin, Tros, and Realm. Shinryu will help against aggro matchups, and X-Death will be for middle game, late game. X-Death won't be in the list, obviously, now that it's not Lightning anymore. Advanced search most of the decision making of the deck, and use the Leo and Friends deck list for ideas inspiration. Lack of summons and choices in backups. Aim for cheap backups to get more draw power. Insight changes, so on and so forth. And then here's the second thing they said. It said, I've submitted a V1 of this list. After playtesting, Lightning cards just don't do enough, but MIra doesn't need Lightning cards to be played. Swapped Lightning to Fire for a Mots and Goblin alongside some pressure tools through Fury and a Demon to accelerate the game plan. Furion may seem out of place, but with certain hands you can have Furion online with your second turn with haste ready to start drawing cards. Yep. Furion with Realm is absolutely insane. Gao allows them to discard monsters for setup and use them later. It becomes a big body. It's great for applying pressure. Thanks for looking. Hope it piques your interest. All right, let's take a look here. So we have... Okay, all looks really good. Looks really good. All right, so this is really close to how I would build this list. So let's go into the deck editor. It's funny, I'm going to have 2 different lists that are Fire, Water, MIra in this video, but this is going to be one without the twins in it at all. So we're going to go into our deck editor. So we're looking to assemble our Congo line and use the MIra to control the game and just eventually win. I like the 2 MIra. 3 Furion is fantastic. I've considered Gao before. Gao is really good in this list, obviously. I like... Personally, I'm a bigger fan of Quacho over Gao, so I'm going to put that in instead, but Gao, I'll leave Gao in. Just know this could also be Quacho Queen with changing nothing about the list, and it would still be quite good. 3 Realm is great, 3 Shinryu, 2 Demon. We could even go to 3 there if we wanted to, and I'll show you why in a second. Are you ready for the weirdest one? Ooh, Unicorn with Realm is so sick, though. That's really neat. I like that. I'm still going to cut them. Here's why. I'm running 3 Cleon. 3 Amaterasu, 3 Cleon is so ridiculous. I'm going to bump that to 3 so we have an extra of that. Princess Goblin, Princess Sarah. We have 1 Waka, just fine. 3 Loporrit, 3 MIra, 3 Sarah. Let's take a look here. I'm going to cut the Echidna because we only have the 3 Amaterasus as our summons. Bump the Mammoths. Sahagin Chief to 3, that to 3. And let's get our Haste Goblin in as well. Because Haste Goblin plus Demon is extremely potent. Smith 54. Where do I make room in this deck? Because you can go Goblin, 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 and then end on Haste Goblin, and just have it sit there for this guy. But the thing about Cleon is if Cleon is sacrificed to play your MIra, it'll actually draw you the card. Because MIra copies both the entry and exit effects of the monster effectively. If you play a Blue Worm, sacrifice the Blue Worm to the MIra drew you a card. If you play Cleon, sacrifice it to MIra, the Cleon draws you a card, MIra drew you a card by entering play. We're just looking to do that as much as we can. I love how consistent a lot of this looks. I'm going to go down 1 copy on the MIra. Not that I don't like it. I just I love the idea of getting the Realm or the Fury, and depending on what we're missing, and getting our whole combo going. I just don't think we have space. Every Atomos is great. I love that. I like that Gao can actually play those for us as well, so drawing them, they're not hard garnets. You're a Yu-Gi-Oh player, apparently. So you get that. I'm going to go to 2 Shinryu, because you can still go Shinryu for Shinryu and still feel pretty good. And I got to cut 1 more card. I'll cut 1 copy of Octomammoth. But otherwise, I really like the list. Gao can be Quattro Queen, and then I said what Quattro Queen is Quattro Queen can be discarded into the mirror, as I said earlier in the video. We're also really low on EX Burst. The only EX Burst is our Waka, so you got to be ready to take some damage in this list because you don't have a lot of recourse if your opponent starts beating up on us. If we want to get to our MIra faster, actually, man. No, we really want the Class 4th Moogle. You can go down a copy of Loporrit and add a copy of... Oh, we actually have to go down anyway by 1. Yes, I would go to this, I think. So... I will be a little... I will say I'm a little worried about aggro, but I think the Demon and Shinryu can help us control that enough. And... I think that everything else we have is really good. Octomammoth and Sahagin Chief are going to let us control the board. We're going to have a ton of characters. If you really want to, by the way, this deck is the only, one of the best decks for Hippocampus. You can kind of tap some of your useless monsters, like your Evray or your Haste Goblin, your Sahagin Chiefs to kind of do this, and you get to a very large board state in these games. It's not uncommon to have 15, 16, 17 characters on the field at the same time. And you could just cleave for 5k every single turn. Even better with the Furion. You could give the Furion first strike and then animate Hippocampus. Right? But if you did that, you have to cut 1 more card. Maybe one of the Class 4th Moogles or a Sarah or something. But really, really cool list. Hopefully that gets you most of what you're looking for out of it, for advice from me anyway. If you wanted to not run the Cleons, you could run the Unicorns again. I think Unicorn Realm is actually a really sick thing I hadn't considered. But yeah, I think this would be really, really good. And Furion, a lot of the time, reads unblockable. Your opponent does not want to block this card ever. Even without a lot of fire cards, I think the threat is still too high for your opponent. So... yeah. Thank you again, everybody, for submitting. Feel free to shoot more of them my way right in the description. I've got enough for... Let's take a look here. 1, 2, 3... I've got enough for about 2 more videos, probably, but I would love to see more. It might take me about a week or 2 to get to your video or your deck when you send it in, but I would love to see them. So thank you so much. and I'll see y'all in the next one.